This is not a sponsored video. I am not being compensated in any way for talking about the data removal services in this video, and the fact-based opinions I'm about to share are purely my own. Also, I am not going to recommend any one specific data removal service because there is no one right option for everyone. By way of analogy, imagine you work for a company that offers 3 health insurance plans, from a low-cost plan that costs $200 per month to a high-end plan that costs $600 per month. Which of these plans is best for you? The best plan for you would depend on your anticipated medical expenses. The best plan for a generally healthy person would be the Essential Care Basic Plan because it is the cheapest option for people with less than $5,000 per year in medical expenses. But a person with significant medical issues would be better off with the Prime Elite Plan if they expect their annual medical expenses to exceed $24,000 per year. To pick the best data removal service, there are a lot of things to consider, and in this video I will share my thoughts about the strengths and weaknesses of different approaches to data removal to help you select the right solution for you, which may very well be to simply do it yourself with a free guide I will link to in the description. I am Dr. Jon Padfield, an engineer turned state representative turned business professor, and this is Business Reform, where we discuss issues at the intersection of business, technology, and society. If you want to support my work bringing you informative, sponsor-free videos, I invite you to buy me a coffee by scanning this QR code or using the link in the description. At a high level, data removal services all work the same way. They contact data brokers on your behalf and request the data broker to remove your personal data from their database. That data may include your date of birth, marital status, names of relatives, and a host of other personal information about you. I want to stress when it comes to data removal, these companies are not doing anything that you can't do yourself for free. Let's start by answering a couple of questions about data brokers, such as how many data brokers are there? The California Privacy Protection Agency defines a data broker as, quote, a business that consumers don't directly interact with, but that buys and sells information about consumers from other businesses. Data brokers who traffic data on California residents are required by law to register with the state of California, and there are currently 522 registered data brokers in the California Privacy Protection Agency registry. But a June 2025 study conducted by the Privacy Rights Clearinghouse and the Electronic Frontiers Foundation found there are literally hundreds of other data brokers that have not registered. As always, links to all my sources can be found in the description of this video. There are over 5,000 data brokers worldwide, and collectively they are expected to earn over $365 billion annually by 2029. You may be wondering, do data brokers have to delete your data or at least suppress it if you ask them to? The answer is, it depends on where you live. California, Oregon, Texas, and Vermont have the strongest laws requiring data brokers to both register with the state and to delete your data, but you or a company acting on your behalf must contact each data broker individually to make that request. However, as of January 1st, 2026, California residents will be able to opt out of all data broker databases by filling out a single online form with the California Privacy Protection Agency. 8 additional states currently have some version of data deletion law, and as of January 1st, 2026, Indiana will join that list. Even if you do not live in a state that requires data brokers to delete your data upon request, data brokers will often do so anyway for public relations. Most of them would rather voluntarily allow you to opt out than to keep you in their database and risk irritating people to the point they start lobbying their state legislators to crack down on the entire data broker industry. However, some data brokers simply refuse to follow the law. New Jersey's data deletion law only applies to current and retired police officers, prosecutors, judges, and their family members. The law requires data brokers to remove their data within 10 days of receiving a takedown request, but last year 118 data brokers were sued by New Jersey law enforcement officers for failing to remove their data. Worse yet, one of those 118 data brokers sued for failing to remove data was LexisNexis, who is now being sued for retaliation against more than 18,000 people associated with New Jersey law enforcement by freezing their credit and falsely reporting them as identity theft victims. No matter how much you may hate data brokers, you don't hate them enough. While many data brokers collect your data without your consent, and countless data brokers have had data breaches that resulted in your personal data being exposed on the dark web, it is important to remember they are not all the same. Some data brokers pose a much greater risk to the privacy of the average person than other data brokers. Data brokers generally fall into one of 6 categories, including people search websites, financial information, marketing and advertising, health information, risk mitigation and fraud detection, and recruitment and employment. Of these 6 categories, people search websites are the ones most people think of when they think about data brokers. That is because while most data brokers in the other 5 categories sell your data to other companies, people search websites sell your data to nosy neighbors, jealous coworkers, and that psycho on Reddit who insists everyone who disagrees with him is a World War II-era German leader with a funny mustache. Out of the 5,000-plus data brokers in the world, an estimated 200 to 500 of them are people search websites. Since your legal right to opt out depends on where you live, and some data brokers refuse to follow the law anyway, you may be wondering if data removal services actually do any good. In my personal experience, the answer is yes, despite what Consumer Reports claimed in an August 2024 article. Consumer Reports recruited 32 volunteers and broke them into 8 groups of 4. The 4 people in each of the first 7 groups were enrolled in one data deletion service, and the 4 people in the 8th group manually removed themselves from people search websites by completing the opt-out forms on each website. The article did not say what state the volunteers lived in, and only having 4 volunteers per deletion service is a very small sample. But let's see what happened in the Consumer Report study. The article is sparse on details. It claims 332 pieces of information were found on the 28 volunteers who used the data deletion services at the beginning of the study. That is a surprisingly low number of pieces of information, and it makes me suspect that the volunteers may have been fairly young on average, because generally speaking, younger people have less data online, because they have lived in fewer locations, possibly held fewer jobs, and may not have married yet, so they have fewer relatives. If my suspicion is true that the volunteers were generally younger, that would mean the sample was biased and the results of the study wouldn't carry as much weight. Regardless of the study's limitations, only 117 of those 332 pieces of information, roughly 35%, had been deleted over the following 4 months. The 2 best data removal services resulted in roughly 2/3 of the people's data being removed, while the 2 worst data removal services only removed 4 and 6% of people's data. The article went on to say that the 8th group of 4 people, who manually submitted the opt-out request rather than using data deletion services, saw the best results with a 70% success rate. Why was there such a huge discrepancy in the effectiveness of data removal services? It likely comes down to how different services submitted their data deletion request. Some deletion companies send their own form letter with your information to every data broker, demanding that the data be removed from the data broker's website. This generally does not work very well, as most data brokers have their own opt-out request form, and many will not honor an opt-out request unless it is submitted on their form. Some data deletion companies pay employees to manually go to each data broker they cover and submit an opt-out form on your behalf using the data broker's own form. This approach generally works better than sending a standard form letter. I want to be clear, I am not making any accusation about security, but it appears some of those data deletion companies have a lot of privacy advisors based in India or other low-cost regions around the world who are completing those opt-out forms with your information. I only bring this up for the sake of transparency, as some people might not be comfortable with their data leaving the United States. Other data deletion companies use AI to fill in data broker opt-out forms, solve CAPTCHAs, click links, and send emails. If you look across the 7 largest data removal services, the annual cost for one person generally runs around $100 to $300 per year. If you are interested in saving that money and doing it yourself, I strongly encourage you to go to Michael Bazel's website at inteltechniques.com/workbook.html and download his free PDF with step-by-step instructions on how to opt out of 185 of the most common data brokers. The PDF is a workbook with direct links to the removal request forms that you can complete yourself. The workbook is free, and by doing it yourself, you not only save money, but you also avoid giving your personal information to yet another company that might get hacked in the future. You do not need to remove yourself from all 185 data brokers. The most often used people search website is whitepages.com, with 50 million visitors per month, but the volume of traffic drops quickly as you move to less popular people search websites. If you just remove yourself from the top 10 most common websites, you will have taken a big step forward on your privacy journey. In fact, Michael Bazel suggests that just removing yourself from these 9 websites will trickle down to many of the smaller websites in the workbook. If you really don't have time or simply don't want to do it yourself, here is a comparison chart of 7 of the most popular data removal services. Note, the number of data brokers included can be very misleading, as some services automatically remove you from some data brokers, but you must specifically request to be removed from others. Also, new data brokers are popping up all the time, and some existing data brokers are getting acquired and merged into other data brokers. Some of these services also offer discounts for multiple people or for signing up for multiple years of service. In other words, while I made every attempt to be accurate, this table is a snapshot in time as methods, cost, and features can rapidly change, so please check the individual websites before making your final decision. I have personally used Delete Me for over a decade, and I have been very happy with their service. From time to time, I attempt to look myself up online, and I rarely find myself in any people search website. Full disclosure, last year I made my one and only sponsored video, and it was sponsored by Aura. I signed up for and tried their service before accepting that sponsorship, and even though they cover fewer data brokers, they found my data on a couple of websites that Delete Me had missed. However, the people search websites where they found my data were very small and obscure websites I had never heard of before. Ironically, according to the Consumer Reports study, Optory and Easy Opt-outs, the most expensive and least expensive data removal services, performed the best out of the 7 data deletion services they tested. If you really don't want to opt out yourself using Michael Bazel's free workbook, and all you are looking for is basic data removal, it is hard to beat the $20 per year service offered by Easy Opt-out. Aura's service includes a lot fewer data brokers, but they include a lot of other services for $108 per year, including a VPN, password manager, credit monitoring, and ID theft protection. My mention of Aura's VPN is not intended as an endorsement, as I will be making a video soon comparing VPNs, and Aura's is not my favorite. However, if you are on a tight budget, theirs is a nice to have if you don't want to spend the money on a standalone VPN. I would also like to thank the 766 people who voted on my YouTube post asking what data deletion service they use. Incogni came in first with 7%, followed by Delete Me with 5%. Another 7% of respondents said they use some other service, and 81% said they did not use any service. If you are among the 81% of my audience not using any data deletion service, I would again encourage you to download the free workbook and do it yourself, or choose one of these services. I have now received both my Above privacy phone and my Brax 3 privacy phone, and I will be making videos about them within the next week or so. I also have a lot of other videos in my production pipeline, so if these topics are of interest to you, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss them. I have had a great time meeting people and making new friends at the first 5 stops on my Brushfires of Freedom tour. I will soon be speaking in the Chicago area, but the date for that event has not been set yet. I will also be adding 1 or 2 more cities to the tour this fall. Visit brushfirestour.com to sign up for tour updates. My goal with this channel is to make privacy normal again, and to help people preserve their humanity that is being eroded away by companies monetizing our time and attention. They see people as resources, and they are strip mining us of our time and money by convincing us with targeted ads to, as Dave Ramsey says, buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. Thank you for watching.